We know that old growth is disappearing globally, and we know that it's disappearing in BC. People all around the province have been watching this happen, and as an ecologist, I've seen it happen, and I've taught coastal temperate rainforest ecology at Bamfield and seen our big old growth disappear. So one year I went out to the stand that we'd taken students to each year, and I knew the trees so well, and our students knew the trees. We'd studied the soil, we'd studied the insects, we'd studied the lichens, we'd studied everything there. And we took the students out one year, and it was all stumps. And we managed to fit our whole class on one stump. Not a big class, it's only like 20 students, but still, that's a lot of people to fit on a stump. And so that really hit home, because here we were teaching coastal temperate rainforest ecology. We were trying to take students to old growth, and it turned out that we actually had to drive them 1 or 2 hours to get to some of this big old growth to show them. And this is at a research station. So that really kind of hit home just the status of old growth and how it's changing. So then over time, I mean, over the past 20, 25 years, I've been studying old growth, I've been teaching about old growth, and I've been looking at old growth policy. I worked for government a number of times and came up with some status reports for old growth in various regions, and have waited for 10 or 15 years for those status reports to be made public. And the government didn't make them public. So, along with my colleague Rachel Holt and Dave Daust, we decided, okay, we need to do something about this. And so once the data became publicly available, we decided that we were just going to, on our own, analyze these public data and look at the status of old growth for the whole province and release it to the people of BC so that they could know what's going on. Because everybody can see what's going on, but the numbers weren't there to back it up. And government needs numbers in order to come up with their policy. So that's why we decided to analyze what was going on in old growth. And so we did. And that was kind of the first step of this journey that the three of us have embarked on over the last year and a half, which has been rewarding. It feels like some of the most important work we've ever done. It's also been exhausting, sometimes in really good ways, because we've got communities coming to us, we've got nations coming to us and wanting to know what's going on in their territory. Can we use your data? Can we overlay it with our territory? And so that's really cool, because we feel that there's people on the ground who are going to be able to use these data that haven't been available before. So that's exciting, kept us busy, and we all have kind of jobs on the side, so we all are working on other projects too, a lot of which are dealing with old growth. But this work is all off the side of our desk. So nobody has funded us. We are just doing this on our own because we think it's important. And so then we are also having conversations where the three of us have kind of moved. We're still scientists. We're ecologists. Dave's a forester. But we've also shifted a little bit to more of an advocacy role, because we just see how important it is to have the scientists speaking out. It's like it's our responsibility. We know what's going on here. We know what's going on with old growth. We've all spent, hours, days, weeks, months in the forest. We've seen what's happened. We know how important it is for biodiversity, for carbon, for resilience in so many ways. And so we think that it's really our responsibility to speak out. So that's why we're speaking out. What we're calling on the government to do is what the government has committed to do. So the government convened this old growth panel, an independent panel, and they did an excellent job, and they came up with 14 recommendations, and the government has committed to implementing all 14 of those recommendations. And if they do, that's going to take us, maybe not all the way, but that's going to take us a long way to doing the best that we can with what we have left. And so some of the really important recommendations, I would say, along with First Nations consultation, which government is working on as they're required through signing onto DRIPA. The other recommendation that is of equal importance is a paradigm shift. And so we need to shift, because the reason we're in this position today is that forest management has prioritized timber above all other values. It describes the other values, has some nice wording about it, But when it comes down to it, you can't protect an area for biodiversity if it will have an undue impact on BC's timber supply. So timber trumps all else. And that's how we've got here. And I mean, I won't get into the policy because it gets quite complex. I can, but what we need to do is to shift that. So instead of timber having the priority above all other values, we need to say that we need to have ecological integrity, we need to have biodiversity, we need to have cultural values. In light of the climate crisis, we need resilience. So if we could put those values as priorities, that's what would take us to a change that means that we would actually be able to maintain biodiversity, we would be able to help mitigate climate change, we would be able to adapt to climate change better. So that's the critical piece, is this paradigm shift from timber as priority to, let's say, ecological resilience. Ecological health is another way of putting it, as priority, with timber as one of many values. So I would say that that is the most important. And now, that takes time. So in order to get there, one of their other recommendations is that we need to stop logging the most at-risk old growth now. And we need to, because there's so little left, that if we wait, Premier Horgan said that the new old growth strategy will be out in 2023. If we wait till then, there will be even less productive old growth than there is now. So if the province is consulting with First Nations, as they are, and saying, okay, let's do some land use planning and figure out which areas you want to have protected or to maintain different values on your territories. If they want to do that, we have to stop logging these at-risk endangered ecosystems now, because otherwise there won't be anything to choose from in terms of making these land use plans. So because it takes a time to do land use planning, because it takes time for a paradigm shift, we need to create breathing space. And the way to create breathing space is to halt logging in these rare at-risk forests, which end up being the productive forests like this. Natural ecosystems are what sustains us as people. We cannot survive without natural ecosystems. Forests in particular are, in BC, are the foundation of our biodiversity. So if people care about wildlife, if they care about water quality, if they care about minimizing the natural disasters with climate change, then all of those are influenced by old growth forest. And none of us is saying there shouldn't be logging. We all believe that you can have a sustainable amount of logging. We feel that what is important is that you choose what to leave first, rather than choosing what to take first. And the pieces that you need, the pieces that you leave, have to be the pieces that are going to be sufficient to support the values we care about. So I mean, essentially, maintaining forests matters because we care about the values they give us.